Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I am your moderator. Details of today's session are on the screen. This session will be led by Jim Plume from the InfraDomain Steering Committee, and we will take a run through the roadmap of the infrastructure domain and the working groups and activities within that roadmap. Jim will be joined by Jury Boons, who will be talking about his working group and has slides from other working groups, including that Mirbeck leads. The session is scheduled to last 90 minutes and will include time for questions at the end. The session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to Jim, I'd like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. If you're online, your microphones will remain muted. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box and I will prompt you to do so. For the attendees in the room, thank you for joining us. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and we have microphones. I'd also like to bring to your attention the information that will be on the screen in a moment. Yep. buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted. The process for their adoption is transparent and that standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider but are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. With that, I'm going to pass to Jim.
If I don't trip over getting to the front. So thank you, John, and thank you all for joining this session. So my name is Jim Plume, and I'm part of the. Thank you. Yes, I'm part of the InfraDomain Steering Committee. I'm also from Australasia. So this will be a working session. I'm going to speak at the beginning and run through a few things. Jury, who's with us, will be contributing one segment, and at the end there, the roadmap working session is what you'll all be doing. Okay, because it's so we're going to go. I'm going to talk briefly about the InfraDomain roadmap and what it looks like at the moment, and put that into some sort of context. We have a roadmap priorities survey, which I'll talk about very briefly and show you the results of that survey so far. I'll talk about that. We're then going to have some working group updates because there's some activities that are running at the moment. But sadly, of the 4 activities, well, actually the 5 activities that are running, 3 people aren't here. So we weren't able to, they've got conflicting commitments this afternoon. So we'll be hearing primarily from Jury, and then we're going to go into a roadmap working session. So first I'm going to introduce the InfraDomain roadmap, and you may or may not have seen this diagram before. We used it a couple of years ago, back in 2023, when we formulated a roadmap for the next 5 years up to 2027, and we produced this as a diagram to show what that looked like. So how many people have seen this before? So, okay, so I'll walk through it quickly, just so you understand. So we divided the activities up into bands, and you can see them there. So this was done, of course, right just as we finished working on IFC 4.3 and the deliverables for road and bridge and
rail and ports and waterways.
Yeah, ports and waterways. Rail, of course, was run through the rail program, the rail domain, and common schema. But we put all that together and produced what's now known as IFC 4.3. And when we had done that, we then went into a planning mode. What do we do next? And I ran a number of workshops. I spent a year running workshops across the globe, mainly remotely. And we came up with a set of ideas, things that we believed needed to be done. And I categorized them into these bands. And the thickness of the band was my attempt to sort of show the relative weight that we thought as a committee would apply to each band, to each sort of part of the work. But it was never done in any sort of scientific way. It was just what we thought. So you can see there that there are key activities, so chapter workshops. These are the suggested activities that came out of those chapter workshops that I talked about a minute ago. There's also some suggested cross-domain activities that are in red, and things that are just the day-to-day, if you like, responsibilities of the steering committee were shown in blue. And so if you start to read the fine print, which you probably can't read from where you are, I can hardly read it from here, you can see things in there. So AOH operations, asset operations handover, InfraDomain working group sort of ran over that period. There was a BSDD for infrastructure and so on. They're all there, and the arrows are meant to show our estimation of how long that activity would take. Does that make sense? So it's just a planning mechanism. I've just had a bit of a holiday for the last 6-7 weeks or so. And so 8 weeks ago, I produced this, and as my attempt, and it's really only my attempt, to say we're now halfway through this period, where are we up to, what's going on? And so you see one subtle difference is that in my perception, whereas in the previous diagram, which you probably didn't notice, the infrastructure extension work we saw as being still a major activity that we'd be doing. But in fact, that's not what's happened. We haven't really done very much apart from the tunnel project, which we can talk about separately. But things like use case management and BSDD and other activities sort of started to become more important. And so I've tried to reflect that in the thickness of the bands. But again, it's only indicative. It doesn't sort of say very much. But you can see, again, all of these are the same, and they're all, and the activities are there. I've also introduced a new category, which is pale green, which are the completed or ongoing activities. So they're the things that we've committed to, we're working on at the moment, or we've actually completed. Excuse me. And so this diagram, if you like, tells a different story. And what's important to me is the fact that we're here. We're in the middle of 2025, or getting toward the end of 2025. So we've just gone past halfway through our 5-year planning process, and seems to me it's a good time for us to take stock and say, are we doing all the right things? Are any of these things, well, they're already in progress, so we probably don't want to cancel them, but are there other things that ought to be introduced into this, both things that we've already been thinking about? Maybe we should start to work on those during our last 2.5 years of this plan, or are there other things that we ought to be thinking about because the world has changed? I mean, I know someone's going to say AI, because that's the big topic, so maybe AI should be in there somewhere. I'm not sure I actually think that's true, but that's a personal view. So the point is we need to, this is a good chance for us to rethink this. And that's really the purpose of this event now. So that's the context. I'm happy to take questions on that if anyone wants to, anything needs to be clarified there. You understand what we're doing? Okay. So one of the things initiated by the steering committee, I think primarily by John, to be really honest, was this survey. So there's an online survey which has been done, I guess, experimentally by the members of the steering committee. No one else has actually been asked to do the survey, and we're going to come back to that because you're going to be asked to do the survey. So get prepared for that. And these are the results that have come out so far, which is kind of fairly meaningless because it's a survey of 9 or 10 people. But you can see these are the activities, and these are the weightings that are given. And the survey asks 2 questions. It says, which how would you rate the importance of this activity on a scale of 5, 10, whatever, 5 I think it is, and also how easy you think it is, you know, the low hanging fruit question. If it's very important but very hard, then you know it kind of gets a lower overall score. So those two figures out of 5 get evenly split across the two, and so 14.6 says that that one, the weighting, importance and balanced by ease of use, generates that number. That makes sense? You'll see that yourself in a minute anyway. And so these are the activities, things like UCM management for infrastructure, role of InfraBIM in delivering something, addressing consistencies in design and so on. They're all there, and this is a way of summarizing that information. Now that's not terribly important at the moment, except to understand what the survey produces. Does that make sense? Okay, so we then have this available. You can, if you're interested, you can later go to the survey results and see them. And that'll be more interesting after our session, because I'm hoping that each of you will do the survey this afternoon, and that will give us much more results, okay? And the survey is available by clicking on that QR code, but we'll come back to that. So that's the survey. The InfraDomain working groups that are active at the moment, and I use the word active very generously in one particular case, as you'll see, are these. So Asset Operations Handover Infrastructure Domain Working Group, I led that group, and we finished that work, and we published a report, a year ago, a while ago, and that's available. So it's no longer active. Then there's these 4 at the moment are the ones that are most active. So there's a user guide, IFC Infrastructure User Guide, and Alexa talked about that this morning for those who were in that first session. And I've got her slides in this pack, but we don't need to go through them. Mark is looking at IFC and geospatial infrastructure, and again, he's talked about that briefly this morning in that first session. Of course, we knew he wouldn't be here now, and he is, of course, is away doing that. That project is actually was initiated by BSI, but Mark has taken, or is one of the people who has taken the responsibility to make it work, make it happen. Mirbeck, who isn't with us today, took the project to look at the BSDD and applying that to infrastructure, and he's got a presentation tomorrow where he'll be presenting that. It's only a half-hour presentation, so it'll be short and sharp, but I encourage you to go and hear what he has done, because it's really interesting, using the BSDD in a particular use case. And then there's the application of IDS in infrastructure works, which Jury has been working on, and he'll be telling us all about that. And to my shame, the last one is use case management, for management of applications. And I don't know how I got the job of leading that, but we've had one session, I think, and where a few of us talked about what they were doing, and I haven't progressed beyond that. So I'm very naughty, but that's still on the list. So they're the activities that are happening. This is the slides that Alexa produced. There's 3 of them. So she talked about this morning about the purpose of the activity, and it's spelled out there, and the primary audience. I'm not going to go through it again because she's already presented. Who was here this morning, or who was not here this morning? Not. Okay, but so you need to read fast. I'm not going to parrot what she said, but it was just to basically look at developing a best practice use guide. And these are the sorts of topics that she and her group considered including in the guide. You'll get these slides later, so I wouldn't try and take too many photos. And because I'm going to fly through them, and but it's paused. They were active early in 2024, but the group kind of evaporated and didn't do very much, and now is trying to find a new, a fresh sort of direction for it. So there's an opportunity there for people, anyone, any of you, to get involved in helping with that. Because it's really very important, but it's very complex and needs to be driven by experience in the use of IFC 4.3 on infrastructure works. And so it actually is very important, a very important deliverable, but not easy to produce. So we need some help with that one. The next one, there's a bunch of slides here from Mark, and he talked about it this morning, but you didn't see his slides. So now I'm not going to talk about it, but you get to see all his slides, just to really confuse you. So there's a working group, OGC working group. It's done in collaboration with Open Geospatial Consortium. This is their kind of their roadmap, their plan activities. I can't go through the detail there. It's not important. Well, sorry, it is important, but not to our discussion at the moment. But you can see that they're progressing their way through these issues. They're inventorying all the pieces of it, and they're maintaining. It's being done very thoroughly, and they're reporting on it. So if you want to have a look at that or provide feedback, there's a QR code. So that's the work that Mark has been doing. He talked about it this morning, and you can get the details later. Then there's the work that Merbeck is doing, and I've just pinched two of his images. He'll be talking about this in more detail tomorrow, but this is captures the fundamental idea or the scope of it. So it's to do with high voltage transmission systems, both the structures that carry the cables and the cables themselves and all of the hardware associated with that. But what's interesting about this activity is that it's identifying all of these concepts that are important in that domain. And I've done what everyone else does. I've turned it off. How have I done that?
Okay.
I've turned something off.
Let's have a look.
I think I may have pressed both buttons sort of accidentally, and that confused it. Anyway, so this is just a snapshot, and there's a lot more, but it just shows this is the buildingSMART data dictionary, and he's defined new classes, and he's mapped them, not obvious here, but he's mapped them to IFC concepts. And so he's kind of using the BSDD as a way of defining the taxonomy related to that domain of work, and showing how it can be mapped to the appropriate IFC concepts. And so it's showing how you can then use the BSDD to effectively, but not completely, extend the schema into a very specific domain. And this is only a draft, but it's a first version, but it connects things together. And he'll be explaining that in his session tomorrow. So I encourage you, I don't know what time it is tomorrow, but make sure that you go to that. I think it's 10 a.m., isn't it? 10 a.m., yes. So it's in the first session in the morning, but at 10 a.m. So that's that. Yuri's turn. Tells me his name is George, so he's my mate George, otherwise known as Yuri.
Thanks. I can't say so much. Yeah. Thank you. I think nowadays I have the third possibility to inform about the progress of the whole project. At the beginning, when we ask for this kind of the project, as was suggested, the application of IDS in infrastructure. It looks, let's say, just a little bit more like the fun than the complete schema, how it's ended. So at the beginning, we were happy. We had some free tools from different providers to create IDS. Okay, why not we create something? But in the case of infrastructure, and thanks to implementation IFC 4.3, it appears such quite a lot of question, because infrastructure is a quite new domain, let's say, within IFC schema itself, hasn't done IFC classes, to the work with IFC properties, etc. And it just shows us the necessary that we have to, for the infrastructure, we have to start to build up the data dictionary. Okay, for now, standing outside the buildingSMART data dictionary, the reason was quite easy. It was testing, so we doesn't want to put some mess into the buildingSMART data dictionary, not more than is necessary. So that was the reason why was created some local data dictionary. Then as times goes, it was also enriched with some local content from other branches than the infrastructure. And then time went, and we started with the local content and structuring data, etc. And finally, nowadays we are in application of IDS in our own tool, and the principes of infrastructure needs itself. Here is I hope quite understandable, describe what was the latest task and what was the latest solution. We need to collect some information requirement, because as was shown on the Mirbex example, it's some information consists in IFC schema, but also we have some other domain needs. The domain needs can be country specific, and of course each country has some different needs, and it cannot be standardized everything overall. So that means we have to build up a national data dictionary, fill it some data. We have to know how to properly use the IFC entities as is designed, how to map it, how to work with that. And then, of course, in the case of infrastructure, because it's quite new, we have to start to work with the part of concept. I know it can sound quite easy, but the part of concept in the case of infrastructure is different, because country per country has different IDs, what should belongs to the road, what should belongs to the right, what should belongs to the which system. And we have to set up some rules how we can see it, and that can be some supporting information for the final producing the white paper, as should be the result of the project. And then white paper, of course, can be published for rewarding of the users of IFC, infra, and so on. So, and in our case, that was the needs which was, and for this case, we need to not only use the data dictionary, proper IDS schema, but also start to work with IDS audit tools. The audit tools, it means it's another project which is running on BSI, and that's the audit of IDS core schema itself, not for the content, but if the schema is used correctly. So, and even what was also important to work with the specific part of IDS, because everyone who wants to see the IDS documentation, it's very easy to see that it consists from many different facets, how it's called. And according our ID, which facets can be most interesting for the use in a case of infrastructure is, of course, classification. That's the local ones. Attributes, that's the description of the entities and properties itself. And also the important is work with material and part of concept. I already spoke about part of concept, that so the part of IDS which is used for describing the relation between different entities. And in the case of infrastructure, it's important because, as I mentioned, it's the sign. If the sign belongs to the road, if the protection rod belongs to the road or to the bridge, all of this has to be defined. And what it seems also very useful in the case of infrastructure is the material, because in infrastructure, in the road design, you are already working with the pavement, with the kind of asphalt, with the kind of concrete, and so on. And that's also has to be defined. So, and in the case of our project, just some short example, it's the connection by using API. It's the connection in between our our national dictionary system, our triplets, and also the schema of IDS, because those codes which producing this XML IDS, it's written by the professionals, and it also shows to us that it's very important to have some communication layers in between the professional, like the domain professional, engineers and designers, and the IT guys, IT specialists who can type the code like the professional one. It has to be there some person who had to translate the needs. This will be also one of the recommendations. It's not only the application of the concept, but it's also the communication and to ensuring the communication what the professionals needs and what the IT guys should deliver. So, what we are planning to use, just our next step. As I showed before, those facets of IDS seems to be most useful, and the facets, of course, consisting from many different attributes, from many different informations. And in the case of attribute facets, what also seems to be necessary, I only took out, or I want only to point out the parts which we think that is necessary to work with. Of course, global ID of the entity. That's in the case of any dictionary, BSDD or national one or whatever. It's the URI of the entity itself. Then, of course, we need to have some human readable text. Then we have also some additional information related to the entities, because it depends on the profession who will use it. And of course, then some other sources which can point out to the local law description or technical description, technical standards or legal standard. And as well, what is the other important stuff, but it seems that it's quite a lot of discussion connected, is the part of facet where is necessary to define the relation in between a different part of infrastructure. And I think in the case of infrastructure itself is generally missing some broader agreement what should be related to what within the infrastructure design itself. So, and then some small example for material facets. So this was in a shortcut how the project looks and what is the planning as a next step to get the final result. And here some real example from the real project. So even it's Czech words here, but anyway, what the picture wants to show as an example of application part of concept of the relation. This is an example from railway construction, and thanks some local needs, it's there are some used relation in between ground system and some different part of the ground system. And for all of these terms, which are even in Czech, are of course exist the entities within IFC 4.3 schema. That's okay, but there are entities which has some relations directly from the schema, but some of them which are standing out of the schema, and we need to say that this one is somehow connected with this one. So, and that's the application of IFC real assigned to group class of IFC. This is just an example what has to be considered to get some fully useful IDS for information delivery in infrastructure. And as well some picture from application in our tool. It's just in the shortcut that we already apply there and IDS audit tools and generate some reports, but that's just the issue of the implementation. But we are also running the living test because in the end is very important for our project as well. So that was everything from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiri.
You want to stay there? Are there any questions for my mate George? I mean, Jiri? It's a chance to, yes. Oh, I'll bring one.
Yep, it is ongoing, and because we are now in the stage that the project is overlapping with another topic, I would like also to use this, let's say, summit, this meeting for, let's say, something like call for the experts to get the participation on the project.
So it's not currently available anywhere to review, or that's what you're saying, you'd like to get together, get groups of together?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well, thanks, Yuri, very much. And we'll move forward. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so now we get to the interesting part. Sorry, that was very rude. I didn't mean to say that. The bit where you contribute. Roadmap workshop. So what we want to do now is lock the doors. Oh, no. That's the new refined workshop again, roadmap again. And we're going to, see, I've done it again. We want to go back to the survey. I thought the best way of pulling all this together is to ask you all to whip out your phones or your laptop if you wish and do the survey. That will achieve a couple of really key things. The first, will give us information that we can work with after the event. It also means that what the survey does, it works through, I think there are actually 13 of them, 13 of the topics that appear on the roadmap, and I'll bring the roadmap back in a minute, and it asks you two questions. Well, it first of all describes the topic, so there's a bit of text to read, which will explain what that activity is all about, and then it says, how important do you think this is? So you rate it 1 to 5, and how easy do you think it is to deliver? So it gives us those two metrics, and you go through each of the 13 topics, and that will effectively help you to think, well, these are the things that have been previously identified as activities that should be done. Some of them are going on, some of them haven't been initiated at all. Then the very last question is the open-ended one. Can you now give us any of your thoughts? You know, what do you, is there anything you want to say back to us? So that's your opportunity to say, well, how about we have an activity on AI, or how about we have an activity on XYZ? And also, you can have the opportunity to say, Yuri, I'd like to really contribute to your project at this point, and we can feed that back to Yuri as a contact. So it means you've got to tell us who you are, but it's easy. So can I ask you all to scan the QR code? It'll take about 15, maybe 20 minutes to do, because you've got to read each item, then you've got to answer the 2 questions, read the next one, work all your way through. And as I say, it'll give us really useful information, and it will give us a basis for then having a further discussion about what about some of those issues, particularly the ones that you think are particularly important, or the ones that you think are missing. And that helps us to move forward with our roadmap into the last 2.5 years. Is that clear to everybody? You're all happy to do that? The answer is yes, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to not talk for the next 15, 20 minutes. When you're sort of done, then kind of look at me lovingly, and I'll know that you've done the work, and when everyone's finished, we'll pick it up again. Okay?
Just to add to what Jim was saying, you can scan the QR code to access the roadmap, the infrastructure domain roadmap survey. It's also, the QR code or link to the survey is also in the BSI Summit WhatsApp channel. And if those 2 things fail, if you come and see me, I can email it to you as well. But I'll need your email to do that.
And if you're on the steering committee, you've already done it, feel free to do it again, because it'll refresh your memory. And we'll separate the results anyway. So.
For each topic, how important is it? 5 is the most important, 1 is the least. And what's the ease of achieving it? 5 is the easiest to achieve. 1 is the hardest.
So there are 2 questions I think I'd like to get some comment on. The first is whether any, excuse me, miss, do you mind? Yeah. Sorry. The first one is whether any of the topics that as you read through them, you're kind of aware of the ones that are already running. Were there particular ones that you thought needed some more discussion, or would you like to raise questions about? Yes, thanks.
Yeah, so there were some of the items, I do not remember by heart, but once we go through them, such an effort to what we have from 19650. And are we discussing a new process chart? Are we looking to maybe reinvent the wheel in a way or not? That was also what was tried to be brought to the table by the ISO 19650 game, to interconnect the OpenBIM standards and products, and the process of information management. Mm-hmm. There was one other item that was a bit strange to my eyes, and that was the one that particularly suggested blockchain. And I was not sure why we are talking about the technology or methodology instead of the question. Be better, or maybe an idea, to focus instead on making examples. or like templates. Like we also had within our own entity a trial to collect use cases and write them down, and also use BPM. And there was a bit in parallel, also inspired and aspirated by the UCM. And then what we learned was that it is helpful to adhere to 19650, for example, or from maritime domain. What we tried to do within our initiatives was to try to keep the structure of the swim lanes to the roles, at least of the entities. So at least they are better relatable once we are talking to the other companies who are having 19650 as their required methodology. Because I agree, like having templates and reusable things are helpful, but once we have an international standard that people would be looking into that, maybe it's better to make examples instead of standards on top of standards on top of standards.
Standardizing standards.
Definitely need to standardize standards. Yes. So yeah, thank you for the comment. And I'm not sure we want to throw it open to a debate now, of course, but I value the feedback. And I suspect you're probably right.
Was there another hand up?
What
I thought I
was
saw a hand up.
there was the other issue. The other one was
Blockchain.
blockchain. Will's not here. That was a US suggestion. Will was in the room, but he's obviously
He's at the back.
no, the other Will. Will
Oh, the
Sharp.
other Will.
Yeah. I can't answer the question, but it was a reflection of an initiative taken in the US, and they referred to blockchain. So when we documented, we just mentioned without really challenging. So I wouldn't take it too seriously in that sense. Okay, thank you. Any other reactions to any of the particular items? Because that's all helpful to us. It gives us some insights. Hang on, wait for the microphone.
I don't have any feedback to any of those questions. Maybe the last one, because it was kind of if there was some new topics, maybe, because I was thinking for example, this Open BIM Harmony project, which I attended. So that might be a good initiative to look closer.
That's a European initiative, right? Yes, from the
Another European. Oh no, sorry.
the European buildingSMART. I don't remember what they're called now. Yeah. European Open BIM Forum. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was coming to that. I was just making sure there were no other questions raised by the ones that were already there. So last chance. Any comments on the items that you
Ronald,
read through?
I'll go there, Jim.
And then
I don't have anything to say. You stay where you are.
And then we'll get on to any new ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Also, some question about the asset handover process. So I remember in summer that there were some discussions with the Kobe group. Is it still going on, or is it another initiative?
I think it's gone to sleep, to be honest. As I said before, I led the infrastructure effort, and we spent a fair bit of time running workshops internationally, both face-to-face and remotely, and collected all that information, packaged it all together. The report's out there, and you just go to the infrastructure website and you'll find the report. There was an intention then to take that to another level, another phase, and that was taken on by BSI Central Office, but it hasn't gone past that.
But actually, they are working on a more detailed plan, and I think it's the Ministry of Quebec.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. You're right.
I think there was even a session regarding this during the summit. So maybe something, if you haven't seen it or if it's not happened, maybe something to look into.
No, yes. Ministry of Quebec supported it. So let's move on to other topics. Well,
no, but that was on the same topic. So AOH. Since we are seeing more and more of the IDS and the other products and services in use, wouldn't that make sense also to take a look and reanalyze if this is really a gap that we want to do again and have so much emphasis on Kobe. Or I understand Kobe is a very valuable way of working and a structure to use, but wouldn't IDS serve us for this? Do we need a new abbreviation? I'm coming from Netherlands, and we love abbreviations. Everybody's having a notebook of all the abbreviations.
I don't think Kobe has such an important role in that project anymore as it did in the beginning. So, but I really don't know enough. But we have the project plan. I think is. I'm looking at John, what he's.
Yeah, there's a project plan's been finalised for AOH, Asset Operations Handover, at the moment. Eric Poirier and Ministry of Quebec are reviewing that. It's been presented tomorrow morning in one of the call for paper sessions, but not in this room, 30-minute presentation. And the expectation is that the project will go live with the existing and new stakeholders, so FTIA, Traffic Verket, Ministry of Quebec and others in early 2026. So yeah, it's coming. It's been, as Jim said, it's kind of been asleep for about 2 years, but it's coming back to the table fast now.
My excuse is I've been on a holiday for the last 7 weeks, so I had a touch.
As I understood, there's this activity to create BSDD infra dictionary, the international one. And from my experience, it can never be as granular as the not national dictionary, because there are so many peculiarities between how different nations see objects and systems that either it's impossible or a bit of high level dictionary, that's from my experience. So I wonder, what do you think about that?
The opportunity to dig deeper into that is tomorrow morning. Murbek's only got half an hour to present what he's done, and he's hoping to show it live, but it's just a very complex taxonomy he's created, and then he's showing how he can use that. But it'll be a very short, sharp presentation, but if you can make that, I think he said it was at 10 o'clock, so it's one of the not the first item on the agenda in that 9 a.m. meeting. So, yeah. But feel free to react to any of these comments as well. Yep.
Thank you very much. And in Japan, we also have the problem that it's not easy to convey information from the design or construction phase to the maintenance phase, and it is one of the kind of big issue, in the maintenance phase. So I totally agree with the AOH framework, and conceptually, I don't know the budget programs, but anyway, yeah. So, but yes, what I can say is just I agree with the idea.
Any other thoughts, suggestions? It's 5:10. You either get a 20-minute early mark or you keep talking. What's it going to be?
Well,
yeah. Anyone think of anything new they thought? I kind of poo-pooed the II one, didn't I? That was killer. But are there any new ideas that anyone had?
First of all, thanks a lot for this presentation. The point that I was trying to mention is, additionally to the point that was mentioned of the systems are being defined differently across the nations, I think also that the infrastructure is very general term. Like infrastructure contains tunnels, contains railways, contains water facilities, contains a lot of things that are so diverse and so different. And I think it's a big mistake if we're going to compare it directly to the normal constructions and buildings and all of that stuff, because at the end of the day in the building you have more or less, you know, the same functionality or the same way of building, but the infrastructure you have entirely different way of thinking. And I think if we would like to find a dictionary, then the right way in my eyes will be to find a dictionary that is more specific, because we cannot just make a generic system. Thanks a lot.
I think one activity could be inputting some of the requirements analysis outcomes from the projects, because there was a lot of what was done during the project that was never included in the standard because of national differences, etc. So that could be something we could do, collect from IFC Road, IFC Bridge, and all these projects, and collect them into a BSDD, just as a first initiative.
Yeah, we were talking here when you just said that we need to stop talking about the water utilities and these type of element that might have some beneficial if we have a closer look. It's not just that infra as a whole, but some specific domains.
Yeah, I take your comment very seriously. I mean, there's infrastructure is very, very broad. In fact, there was from an Australian point of view, Victorian Water was very keen at one stage a few years ago to explore IFC as a technology, as a support for their work, but didn't really get off the ground. But in partly because we didn't get other water utilities who kind of came on board. But you know, we could come up with many of those examples, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but they're means that the infrastructure domain is going to go on for many years, I suspect. But I think the work that Merbeck has done is interesting in that context, because he's taken an electrical domain focus, albeit high voltage, but is demonstrating effectively that the kind of concepts that are already in IFC to handle electrical distribution systems can be adapted, if you like, or broadened. And that may well be the case for other of these infrastructure domains. But then you also then need to look at, it's well and good to do that, but is that going to solve the problem, or does that just make more complex, and there inevitably are going to be concepts that aren't in there. So you need to also be willing to add concepts as they're needed. But we don't want to bloat the IFC. But having said that, of course, that's the whole point of, having said that, the IFC 5 initiative is going to address that in many ways, because it's deliberately modular, and it will enable us to build a different structure around IFC. We don't have to keep on mapping concepts to start to create a new domain as a new module.
It was a new idea for a new work group, if you need another work group. BIM execution plan template could maybe be something for infrastructure projects. So you have different chapters, setting up material, spatial breakdown structure, functional breakdown structure, etc., with example, comments, etc.
Yeah.
Could be very useful for newcomers for infrastructure projects.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's one topic in this Open BIM Harmony project that they have done it for buildings now, and then now they are seeking infra to join to create maybe some similar BIM execution plan, what they have done, and like 80% maybe we can use from the buildings, and then 20% is definitely the infra specific.
But indeed, I tend to agree, particularly on the spatial breakdown. And since IFC 4.3 suggested a new way of looking at the spatial breakdown and solving that to be able to accommodate infra things, and because the UK annex indeed suggests for a spatial breakdown, this is something that we also hear a lot from project teams. okay, what is this spatial breakdown about? What's the difference between functional? And I indeed think that it comes as a good appendix to the first item, user guide on, and it doesn't need only to be on OpenBIM. If that also covers information management, that helps to connect these to the rest of the things in a better aligned way.
Very good. We have another question here, Jim.
Thank you.
Hi, yes, just to follow up on the work we are doing in buildingSMART Portugal. We have a few examples of EIRs we are developing aligned with the Harmony initiative, and we are now producing an example of IIR for the design of a tunnel, and it is well underway, so we are probably going to be able to present it maybe in Porto in March. And yeah, I think it could be a good initiative for this.
That sounds good. Some of these things would be part of the guideline, I suppose, with Alexa's work. Anyone else? You have a few topics there.
Oh, thank you very much. Anything else? Don't want to shut it down too prematurely, but there's always, we're only the other end of an email at any time, so feel free to email my colleague here. So if you have any thoughts, or particularly if you're interested in getting involved in any of these things, because there's no point in us just having all these topics and then expecting, the steering committee by itself can't do that. All we can do is initiate and propose and facilitate. So if you're interested in any of those topics that you read through, or any that have been tabled, and you want to, you're willing to contribute your time and your expertise, then please let us know, so that we can start to build international teams that address some of these things. Because there's, collectively we create a very effective and powerful resource, and you have colleagues where you come from who can also get involved with a little bit of encouragement from you. So if you can help us find people and start to participate, I don't know whether anyone volunteered to help Yuri, but he's looking for a bit more, moral and practical support. So feel free to get engaged. And I'm looking at you. No, I'm joking.
Jim, AI is on there. You see that?
Oh, good. Excellent.
We heard the other day AI was hallucinating. So, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I won't make my comments. So that's really where we stand, and we are the community. We collectively, not us at the front. And if we want to make rapid progress in this area, then we have to pull together. And it means it doesn't matter where you come from in the world, you can contribute. Boy, I come from furthest away, and I contribute. I'm also retired, so I guess I have time on my hands, apart from the grandkids. Actually, come to think of it, no. So it's just important that we see it as a community exercise, and we're all a part of that. And the more we contribute, each of us, the more we can achieve. And we can make a change, we can make a difference, quite seriously.
Before everyone is packing up and leaving, I know Alexa is now going to collect from the steering committee mostly right now. It's some test data, sample data that we already have in place. If anyone here is really proud of some data they have, or if they have some problems with data or anything, if you please can share it, if it's possible for you to share it with the steering committee, that would be really good. We need any input we can get for these guidelines.
I can contextualize that if I'm allowed a minute. Sorry, Will. I had dinner with a couple of our colleagues on Sunday night, and this discussion revolved around we're stakeholders, we're end users, we're struggling to understand how we can apply IFC 4.3 to our organisation, and so we agreed to get together. So we opted out of one of the sessions yesterday afternoon, and we got together in a room and just talked it through and started to develop some plans for going forward. But the issue is, as stakeholders, as end users, what are the key issues in IFC 4.3 that need to be understood and maybe agreed on in some sense? So there's obvious ones like alignment and georeferencing and spatial structure. But there may be other things that we as a community can say, well, there is a preferred way of handling alignment in our domain if we just talk about it, if we actually share information. Because what happens, in my observation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, many of our organisations, national organisations and companies are influenced by the software ecosystem that surrounds them. And the software vendors, of course, are selling you ideas and ways of using or implementing IFC 4.3, but it'd be good if we push that aside just long enough to actually talk together as stakeholders. And that's what that meeting was all about. And that's what the collection of models is all about. Let's put together a set of attempts to implement IFC 4.3 in our projects that we can share, and let's unpack across those the sorts of the way we've handled various aspects of IFC 4.3 and see if we can have collective learnings from that. That's what it was about. So if you've got some good material, yes. Let William speak. Okay.
Just a quick follow on to that, what you and Karen were saying. If you're going to share it, make sure that you are comfortable with it being public, available for collaboration in a public space. That's one thing as we get more and more into data governance and maturity, we have to understand and make sure that we're explicit about those intentions. So.
Thank you, Will. That's a huge topic right now. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Shall we bring things to a close?
6 minutes early, Mark. Have they deserved it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for. I'll let. Do you want to have the last word, John?
No, I always have the last word, Jim. But you go ahead first.
True. I've finished. Thank you very much for all of your input. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you to Jim and Karen and Jiri and the Infrastructure Domain Steering Committee. And thanks to all of you for taking part in the survey. 60 people started the survey and 31 completed it. I'm sure the other 29 can complete it before they get home. But no, thank you. That's many, many people taking the survey, so that's really, really helpful. Thanks to everyone who joined us online. That concludes business in this room for today and across the whole of the summit.